actress, model, anchor, and sex educator.
I try to create conversations around sexuality, sexual health, gender, the body, identity.
She is squashing stigma with her content.
I'm trying to do what my hope is that this is going to help normalize these conversations.
NewsX influencer A-list proudly recognizes Leeza Mangaldas for influence in sex-positive content creation. Hello and welcome. You're joining us on NewsX Influencer A-List. I'm Parthi Panot, and with us today on the broadcast is Leeza Mangaldas. Now, Leeza on Instagram and in fact on social media, YouTube, Instagram, she talks about sexual education. She talks about sexuality. So if you have questions that are coming up in your mind that you don't know the answers to, reach out to Leeza on Instagram and she's going to make sure to answer those for you. Firstly, Leeza, thank you so much for being with us on NewsX Influencer A-List and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So what is it that you do, Leeza, on the internet? Tell us a little bit about the kind of content that you're creating.
I try to create conversations around sexuality, sexual health, gender, the body, identity, and really, what I'm trying to do, what my hope is that this is going to help normalize these conversations, because sex remains something that's so stigmatized for discussion here, and most young people don't receive a lot of information about this stuff either at school or at home. And yet it's such a normal part of life. It's something we deserve accurate, judgment-free information about, but no one's giving it to us. So I thought, with the power of the internet, the fact that most people have a smartphone now, and the internet allows for you to access stuff from the comfort of your home, from the privacy of your phone and your headphones, it's really lends itself, I feel, to the dissemination of this information. And I also think that young people use social media so much, right? So much. I mean, people don't put the phone down, they take it to the bathroom even. So if you want to connect with young people, social media seemed like a great way to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's also really important to me that the conversations I have are, not a lot of sex education. The typical attitude to sex education is, let's teach people how not to have negative experiences. Okay, so it's very, don't do this, don't do that, and kind of focusing on a fear-based approach. If you have sex, you will get pregnant. If you have sex, you will get an STD. Or if it's really, really bad, then, if you have sex, you will be punished, or you've done something wrong and evil. And this kind of is what the messaging is. If there is any official messaging, it tends to be kind of laced with judgment and punishment and all of this type of language, abstinence-based, fear-based, or, I mean, even when it's well-meaning, it's like, here's how not to get an STD or not to get pregnant, or not, like, nobody's focusing on pleasure. How about we talk about how we can have the best experience instead of just talking about how we can not have a bad experience. You know what I mean? I wanted that shift where we talk about sex at the get-go as if it's a normal, important and wonderful thing, rather than a scary, bad thing, that we're just talking about because
what all topics are there that you have picked up that, you've already spoken about in the internet? I know that you've spoken a lot about pleasure, like you just said. You've spoken a lot about STDs, or even protecting yourself, but also, how gender influences sex. What are the other kind of conversations that you're having out there?
Gosh, I've made like hundreds of videos at this point. I've tried to also allow for audience questions to dictate the topics I choose. I get a lot of questions repeatedly around certain things, so I try and address them. I think many people have a lot of issues around body image, like, questions around penis size, questions around boob size, questions around, like, why is the skin of the genitals darker than the rest of the body, or lots of questions around first sexual experiences. I have created a lot of content kind of trying to provide helpful information for what you should know before you have sex. Consent is a subject that's really important to me. Talking also about stuff like arousal and desire, and, getting in touch with your own body and pleasure, and understanding that so that you can communicate better, because I think communication is central to positive sexual experiences.
When it comes to sex, there's a certain age limit, right? And you were just talking about how a lot of the content that you also put out is age sensitive. So you make sure that people above the age of 18 can only see that content. Where do you kind of then draw the line, between helping younger people also get information, get relevant information about sex, and, drawing the line with what is right and what is the legal age of, being allowed to have sex?
Age of consent laws vary from country to country and have changed over time. It's a really tricky area without easy answers in terms of age of consent, like when it is legal to begin having sex. In India, it's 18, but there was a time when it was something like 12 here. I mean, we've had child marriage as part of the way things operate in our grandparents' generation. And in other countries, it's 16. In some countries, it's still even younger than that. So how old is appropriate or not appropriate? Is it 16? Is it 17? Is it 18? Is it 20? This is a question that doesn't have an easy answer, and it's not up to me to decide. I'm also a citizen abiding by the laws. So, of course, I maintain that, the age of consent in India is 18. But I think the information, the education is something that has to start early on. It has to start in, when a child is just learning its first words. Like when you teach a child the names of the body parts, for example, you're teaching a toddler, like, this is your eyes, your nose, you're teaching them the words for things, right? And why is it that we never teach them the correct names for the genitals? Instead, we say something either silly like chuchu or nunu or something, or even worse, a common euphemism is shame. You teach a 3-year-old or something that's shame. You're getting it in their head at such a young age that this is shameful, so of course, it should be age appropriate, but I don't think it can be a one-time conversation that you have with a young person when they turn 18. There's opportunities to normalize and educate around sexuality, the body, sexual health, and all of that, all through childhood, because it's usually at age 6 or 7 or 5 even that somebody will ask, Mama, like, where do babies come from? How did I get here? Or, if you're expecting another sibling, like, how did it get in your stomach? Are you going to tell them that a bird dropped it, or we found you in the dustbin? Or, why lie to the child? You can tell an age appropriate but accurate narrative, and there are picture books with illustrations that kind of simplify an explanation of conception and pregnancy and things like that. Or there's when your adolescent child gets their period for the first time or something, don't you think you owe them an explanation? You know what I mean? And yet, too often, we don't provide an accurate answer. We either dismiss the question and kind of say, never ask this again, or we give some made up answer. And I mean, I think there's some people who do provide answers, and hats off to you. I hope there's more parents and teachers out there who do that. But I think there's quite damaging impacts of giving either misinformation or punishing the child for asking questions like that, So I think it's really important, while we understand the age of consent, and we also understand that just because the age of consent is 18, it doesn't mean that no 17-year-old is going to explore something, So we can try our best to uphold the law, but I feel like as adults, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that not everything operates the way it says on paper. And so we should empower people to at least take care of their health, to make sure that people's safety and consent and sexual health is something they know about. Maybe people don't even know the age of consent is 18. Maybe if more people knew that, that would also be helpful. We don't even talk about that. So I feel like by empowering people with information, and I think we really underestimate young people. It's not like just because you tell them something, they're going to rush to do it. In fact, if you don't tell them something, they're going to be more curious about doing it. So I feel like by giving information, you're actually equipping people to enter adulthood better prepared. It's so sad that so many people's first experiences are non-consensual, and we don't even have a proper narrative of like talking about this stuff. So often there's too little that's not said, even saying.
So before we let you go, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to, cut this short. Do you believe, Leeza, that the internet is going to in fact be the future? Because a lot of the narratives that we're now seeing are, starting from the internet. A lot of the movements are starting from the internet, be it Black Lives Matter or be it Me Too. A change is coming, and the internet is driving that change. Do you think this is going to be the future?
I mean, I think the internet has kind of become an extension of real life. There's the separation between life online and life offline. It becomes less and less sort of clear, right? When your device can go everywhere with you. And I mean, I'm sure in a matter of time, we'll have like, some sort of integration into the body where technology doesn't even have to be something that you're holding separately. So I think it's inevitable that the technology will remain central to life. But I think there's also something really valuable about in-person interaction, about like looking outside and smelling the flowers and reminding yourself that there is a whole universe outside of your screen. So I hope that it can be a sort of symbiotic relationship between the internet and the world, as opposed to one where the internet kind of exacerbates the worst aspects of human behavior, because I think it has the potential to do both, and this is a little bit outside of my work, but when you look at how it's impacted elections in the US, so I mean, even we won't get into that, but yeah, I mean, there's a tendency for the internet to only mirror what you already believe, because the algorithm feeds you what you're going to like to see, and so it's very polarizing. So I think we need to pay attention also to the people we don't agree with.
All right. Thank you so much, Leeza, for being with us on Influencer A-List. It's been a very, very fascinating conversation, and more power to you and more power to the work that you do.
Thanks so much, Paridhi. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.